Thank you for inviting me. It is an honor to be here. The and I have to admit that the current situation we're in this country does raise the level of stress, which I will define in a moment. But it does cause, for many of us, including me, deep anxiety and discomfort. The question that I've been asked is, how does one maintain a healthy sense of self in such a situation? Uh, I know it sounds a little oxymoronic, but I'll give you my best shot. Uh, they are stressful times. What the president wants to be king, a war halfway around the world with illegal war halfway around the world, threatening to put our troops on the ground, gas prices soaring, groceries skyrocketing, entertainment, going out to dinner. It's expensive going out to dinner. You can't do it as easy. Housing, buying, renting doesn't matter, soaring. The draft, the threat of starting the draft again. As someone who grew up in that era, went to college to avoid it, which I'm glad I did now, but it it's terrifying with a limit at age 42. Unbelievable. So the question really does come up to how do we avoid anxiety in an environment like that? Let me define what I see as stress. And I really see two kinds. There's the personal and there's the environmental. All of it is felt personally, of course, but the it's psychological as well as biological. It is no doubt that we know that undue stress, especially chronic long-term stress, drives adrenaline and cortisol in your system, which drives our sympathetic nervous system into the fight or flight. Most have heard about the flight or flight notion. What we don't often hear about is the freeze notion, which I'll just quickly comment on. The freeze notion is when the stress causes you to question what to do. There's a sense of, I don't know what to do. It's the deer in the headlights kind of idea. Not uncommon. The other one that's seldom talked about, and in fact I just heard about it recently, is the fawning or the fawn response. The fawn response is kind of, I'll just go along with it. I don't want the conflict. I'll just do what they tell me to do. One of my major concerns, which has been addressed here today to somewhat, is that notion of fawn. People going along without really paying attention or thinking about what the consequences are, because they are frightening. So it's very clear chronic stress causes some really long term problems. Physical, gastrointestinal disorders are really common with chronic stress. Chronic stress might be losing your job. As you know, right now in Toronto, we're going to see 300 or more people losing their jobs, which will cause some stress, which will also affect our community. It also causes depression, anxiety, things like panic attacks, not uncommon. Anxiety, depression is on the rise in our community, and my guess is in the country. So all of this persists and causes longer term problems, which even after the stress is gone, which at very least will be 3 years, we still see the problems continuing and very, very difficult to address. Years ago, back in the 1950s, a psychologist named Albert Ellis referred to this as rational emotive therapy. He called it catastrophic thinking. I heard the term used a moment ago, catastrophic. Yes, it's really easy to slip into that catastrophic thinking. All of us do it periodically. And we have to catch ourselves when we're feeling like we're going catastrophic. Right now, it may well be catastrophic. That's certainly my fear, because it is a real threat. It's not just perceived. There is a real threat afoot, and it's terrifying. I always love that old meme. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're not being followed. Uh, it seems like yes. In fact, we are paranoid for a very good reason. Uh, what do you do about it? It's the question. And I'm just going to give one quick one, which is the breathing exercises. Some of you may be familiar with it. We all do it when we sigh. It's the notion of an inhale, and I usually count to inhaling for maybe 3 or 4, and then doing an exhale twice as long. So out for the count of 6 or 8. It's kind of a you can feel the, the reduction in that anxiety as you exhale. Very important. And I recommend that's where you start, all of us. And I do it. I do it regularly. There's a couple other ones too. In fact, sometimes when I'm working in my clinical office, I sit with my hand over my mouth like this because I don't want my patients to see that I'm doing these breathing to not catch their anxiety. Because, and this is very important, anxiety is contagious, as is depression. You stand near it, you sit next to it, you can easily catch it. It just, and I fear it may be becoming epidemic in our country. So that's just something to work on. Now, in terms of what is a healthy sense of self, and that's a good question. And I'll give you just kind of a brief understanding of that. But it seems to me the first thing is knowing oneself. Now, I think of that in terms of the notion of self-validation versus other validation. Briefly explain. Self-validation is the notion of I can look at myself and I can say, I'm really good at this. I suck at that. It's knowing both sides of yourself. The other validation is seeking that validation from other people. For instance, our culture is really built on it. Performance reviews, report cards in high school and before that. Uh, it's looking for that sense of validation, and it's very reinforcing when it's good validation. When it's not, it's very distressing. So I encourage that people work on the notion of self-validation. Very, very important. And also, the healthy self is able to regulate emotions. Not using alcohol or drugs, which are a temptation in our culture, which do alter emotions in the short term. In the long term, it makes them worse. But it's certainly a common response in our culture. But it really also affects the sleep. When you don't sleep, stress increases. So you have to sleep. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Being here is an action you can take. We need to take action to try to address not just our stress, but the stress within our community and in our country, in the world for that matter. And it does require some action, and that's what we're doing here today. Um, Finally, our country is headed towards a pretty frightening outcome, and action and behavior are going to be required. The question again comes back to what can I do to address that? I got just a few comments I could make that I think are common sense. I suspect most of you know what they are. First one, eat right. We all need to eat right. Sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. Uh, and I know as an aging man, waking up at 2 in the morning is not uncommon. I do it every night. And then it's relaxing self to get back to sleep, but it's critical to try to get 7 to 9 hours. Here's one that maybe people don't think of. I've heard that hugs rewire your brain. So does laughter. Laughter is very important. It is actually, especially that deep belly laugh, it starts to rewire your brain towards a sense of comfort and positive thinking. So laughter helps. Reaching out to others and being able to raise your thoughts and fears and concerns. Um, and ideally, at those times when you discuss those thoughts, reaching out to give and receive hugs, because hugs rewire your brain towards positivity as well. Um, again, look for people of like minded thinking. Right here, we're sitting with like minded thinking. There may be minor differences, but four of us, most of us, all of us, have a common notion in mind, and that's why we're here. Very, very important. Verbalizing emotions. Why is that important? When you shift your feelings in your right hemisphere of your brain to the left hemisphere, verbal hemisphere, say it, it helps you to process those emotions. And one of the problems if you don't process emotions, they linger inside of you, causing rumination and really discomfort, physical and emotional discomfort. So you try to verbalize. And the other thing it does is it really builds a connection with the person who's listening. Uh, the second thing that's critically important, this is more community focused, but finding your sense of purpose and meaning, not just at work, but in your relationships, in our community. That sense of purpose really does help us lift our sense of who we are to a healthier place. So look for that sense of purpose. Stay informed. Be careful. If you watch the news too much, you're going to find yourself getting depressed. You want to be informed. That's true for all of us. And it is helpful to find other people to talk to it about. Dialogue does help. Listening does help. It not just helps you to listen, it helps the person you're listening to. And as you listen, it encourages other people to listen, especially those who have different points of view. And I think it is useful to try to create a dialogue between us rather than avoiding that dialogue. Uh, it really, I believe, does help to understand each other. And finally, reaching beyond our community, I think it's important to reach out to our congressman, Vince Fong. You can get his telephone number, his address, his fax number on the internet. I sent him a letter. I need to call. I know my wife told me about a person who does it every day. I think that's terrific. I had this image of a pile of letters that was stacked high on his desk saying, come on, man, get a backbone. What's wrong with the Republicans? Why do they not have a backbone? It's critical to, it's the independent, you know, Congress. It needs to be independent. Currently, it does not seem that the GOP is independent, nor does the judiciary, and that concerns me just as much. And finally, I think contributing, uh, giving money where you can. It doesn't matter how little. A little bit of money from many people helps. There are many Congress people, causes, indivisible, who started this No King's Day. It's a wonderful group, and they need our support. And again, it doesn't matter how much. I saw a text saying, "Please send me $3." I can afford $3, you know. So I encourage that. I think we have to do something, and anything that lends an aid to the fight that we're in matters. Finally, keep in mind uh, our freedom for which we're obviously fighting is not freedom from the condition. Bad things happen. They always have and they always will. Bad things are going to happen. The real issue of freedom is standing up to those conditions, taking a stand, confirming. That could be personal, that could be family, that could be emotional. It is emotional, clearly. It's situational. It's clearly political in this situation. And taking a stand not only addresses it, but it helps us feel better about ourselves. Um, Stress clearly drives anxiety and depression and ill will. When we take action to address those situations, our anxiety reduces. We begin to feel better. Uh, when we find connection with others with similar sentiments, that also helps us feel better. We're not alone in this battle, we're with others. That's why turning to things like this, turning to people who have similar sentiments and feelings about the current situation, helps us. Um, and finally, as I stated, it is contagious. So is the goodwill. It's contagious. When you share that, it helps others. And it also helps us feel better. So take action and contact your congressman, please. Thank you very much for being here.